We'll begin. Usually at these conferences, they talk a lot about the ideas and giving you guys a little bit more education about knowledge and understanding of liberty ideas. But today, I'm not going to talk about ideas. I'm going to talk about approach. So this is not about substance. This is about style. How's the sound coming through? Is it okay? Okay. How's this? So let's say you've got a car you want to sell. Imagine how on Recycler or wherever, imagine how it would impact the sale if at the same time you try to explicitly convince your buyer that he's an idiot. Because that's what we do. That is the sales method of the liberty movement at the moment. Buy my car, you idiot. And this is our approach because we're very upset that people are supporting policies that we find outrageous and wrong. And we're very hostile towards people who disagree, but those are potential customers. And we're not treating them that way. So if you take a look around, right now we're in a Liberty conference and we speak in intellectual circles. But let's say you're not in an intellectual circle, you're in a local market, and you look around at the people there. How are we going to communicate our ideas to these people that are just going about their everyday lives? How are we going to be effective at helping them come to understanding what we believe is right about this stuff? Well, the truth is that we can't. We're totally powerless. We don't have the tools to do it because we're training ourselves in an intellectual battle and we're ignoring everything else. 95% of the world is not intellectual, and that's being generous. By definition, half of the population is below average intelligence. And we're fighting over the top 5%, and amongst them, at least 95% of them are not libertarian. So we're totally ignoring all the low-hanging fruit out there. And so if you look at most companies, there's a good reason why we all believe in the division of labor, and there's a reason why the engineers and the inventors are not the salesmen. Because if you can imagine what would happen if you had a car company and you said, these engineers designed this product, they know it very well. Screw these slimy sales guys, let's just fire them all and have the engineers sell direct on the showroom floor. Can you imagine what you would have? You would have the liberty movement, because that's what we are right now. We're basically the engineers dominating the sales department. Very, very violently so. So I don't believe that the fight amongst intellectual scenes, including the liberty scene, is a fight amongst the purists and the moderates. It's really a fight between the engineers and the salespeople. The people that want to actually sell these ideas and the people that are looking at a structure that they can't allow not to be sound, because that's what an engineer is supposed to do. An engineer his focus is on the product. He eats, breathes, and sleeps that product. He should not be able to sleep at night if the numbers don't add up. That's a good engineer, and you need good engineering, or we have a lot of problems in this world, and including in the realm of ideas. So engineers are crucial, but that high-level nitpicky detail that the engineers go into has nothing to do with introducing people to these ideas. It has nothing to do with basic sales, and that's a very different skill set. So engineers have to study product. They have to understand their product, eat, breathe, and sleep it. Salesmen have to have their focus on people. They have to understand people, where they're at, how to connect with the people, how to help them move from where they are to somewhere new. And it's a very different skill set, almost completely unrelated. So, and we also have to understand that not everyone is a philosopher king, and that's okay. Right now we are, we have taken this esoteric world of politics and philosophy and ideas, and we do consider it very important. So I definitely consider it very important. That's why I'm here. But so is plumbing. Plumbing is important, and you'll know when there's a problem that plumbing is very important. So is medicine. So is computer technology. I don't know how the drivetrain turns, the pistons turn the drivetrain in my car and make the car move. I don't know how that works. That doesn't mean I'm an idiot. It just means that I'm focusing on other things. So we can't treat people like they're idiots just because they're not advanced in politics. Everybody has different things that they get interested in. And I'm glad that there's people like us that care about these ideas. So what we need to do is help them feel comfortable with us. But we're not doing that. Quite the contrary. What I want to think us to understand about the scope of the problem is if you want to sell something, you've got a couple of ways to, let's say you want to raise $5 million in revenue from sales. You can sell a $5 product, a million of those, or you can sell one $5 million product. And those are very different sales. A $5 product doesn't have to have a serious benefit to your life. You don't even have to know if it's going to be really good for you, if it really works, and it doesn't have to be very simple of a process. You see what people do for cheap things on Black Friday in America. They jump over each other to get those cheap products. But a $5 million product, and my background is in sales. I sell commercial real estate. I've sold $5 million buildings and up. And when you sell something of that nature, then it has to be extremely valuable. It has to have an enormous benefit to somebody who's going to move that kind of money out of their bank account. The process is not comfortable when you do that. So your job as a salesman is to make it as comfortable as possible. Help them understand the situation and feel comfortable about what they're doing. Also, it's not simple. There's escrow, title, insurance, retrofit, termites. There's a bunch of things that go on, and all of those things can inhibit you from closing your deal. But your job as a salesman is to make it as simple as physically possible if you want to close deals and if you want to get commission for it. Now, what are we selling? Well, we're selling. What we're selling is getting people to change their whole view of the world, and not to trust the schools, the media, and the politicians, but to trust us instead. Right? So not a big deal. That's not a big sale. And in America, we've got 300 million something people. You know, we need at least 150 million for a vote. So you need like 75 million for a voting majority at the very minimum. So that's not a lot of sales, right? You know, that's not a big deal. We got 75 million sales, and we got very easy sales. Guys, like the problem is that the scope here is so enormous that we've got a lot of problems in the world. We've got a lot of things going not the way of liberty. And there's a lot that we can do, but what we can't do is remain stubborn about a failing approach. And we've been having a failing approach. And that's because we haven't been paying attention to sales. And to complain about the problem, I don't think, it's not the system, it's not the politicians, it's not ignorant people, it's not that Keynes is being taught in schools, it's not that everybody loves free stuff. The problem, we have to understand, is us. We can take responsibility for our own contributions to this problem. We are not connecting, and we're not even trying to figure out how to connect appropriately. We're not focused on that. We have to at least acknowledge where we are contributing to our own demise here. If we're blaming others, it's kind of like blaming gravity. The Wright brothers could have said, gravity is a problem, we can't get humans to fly. And everybody would have said, you know, you're right, gravity is a problem. But that was the problem that they decided to tackle. So our problem is others and their views and the fact that Keynes is being taught in the world and the appeal of free stuff. That's the problem. So let's figure out how do we handle that. That's our goal. We can't just complain about it. We have to figure out solutions to these things. And so our solution has been to be the Ice Bucket Brigade. We're basically throwing ice buckets of truth on people. And people don't like it. So they're avoiding us and we're catching them. We got an ice bucket, we're throwing it at them. And they don't really enjoy it. But the truth is that people pay for ice. They pay dearly. They pay in Starbucks for nice, refreshing drinks. They pay in different places when it's hot. Right now, ice would sound really nice. And if we can make this something that's actually appealing, refreshing, and enjoyable, we don't have to throw the ice at people. They can come to us for it. And we have to rethink what we're doing in that respect. So, there's three things that I think are essential to make a sale. There's many things, but I want to talk about three of them. One is to make whatever you're selling attractive. I try to do that in my realm with photos. You might have seen me take a lot of photos because I want the scene to look better. I don't want us to just be a group of people that people are avoiding. I want us to be an attractive group that people want to be a part of. Not just physically attractive, but like we're doing cool stuff. This is exciting. This is fun. And I'm trying to do my small part in that realm. But today I'm not going to talk about that. There's another aspect called, I think, comfortable or non-threatening. It's pretty obvious why non-threatening. Attractiveness is important because you need to get people to move. and you want to get people to move over to you. Non-threatening is important because nobody can tolerate a threat. If you've got a potential murderer in your house, you need to get rid of them. If somebody's a potential attacker, you need to guard yourself from them. And right now, people aren't feeling very comfortable with us. And also, simple. Simple is very important because if it's the more complicated it is, the bigger the hurdle. And if it's too complex, now they've got a wall that they can't actually climb over. So we want to make things attractive, comfortable, and simple. And right now I would say we're a fail in attractive, we're a fail in comfortable, and we're a fail in simple. We're throwing human action or 1,200-page novels at people and hoping that everything changes, but it's not working. So it's as if we're firemen putting out fires, but we're armed with gasoline. We've got a lot of activism, but it's not being very productive. And in fact, the world is moving against what we're trying to promote. But I think that as soon as we can understand our own contributions to the problem, that's a very positive thing because it shows us where we have power to change and what we can do to actually improve our situation. And as far as sales is concerned, my biggest focus in the world of sales has always been to get people to drop their guard. And I've become very proficient at that. Everybody's uncomfortable all the time in the business world. Everybody's sniffing, what's the catch? How am I going to get screwed here? Everyone's very protective, and for good reason, because there's a lot of bloodsuckers out there. And so what I want you to think about is a human cell, or any biological cell. It has a membrane. And why does it have a membrane? Because the contents inside the cell, if it didn't have a membrane, the contents inside would be attacked and the cell would die. So it needs a protective coating to protect it. Everything needs, like there's eggshells, there's a protective coating, there's, we have like structures to protect ourselves. Shells, boundaries, walls are very important and they're crucial. But the thing about a cell, there's always going to be a door somewhere. There has to be. Because if the cell is completely closed off, if it's open, it dies because it's attacked. But if it's completely closed off, it's starving of nutrients and it dies that way. So there's always a door. And what is the door letting in and out? Nutrients, value. If you're bringing value to the table, you can get through the door. No matter how tight and strict that door is, or how hard that shell is, it needs value, it needs nutrients. And everything in life has that situation. And so what I need people to do is to figure out, or what salesmen need to do is to figure out how to find that door and how to get in. And my belief is that no one wants to live his life holding up a shield all the time. Because a shield is uncomfortable, it's heavy, it's burdensome, it's not pleasant, it's not fun. But he must do it. Because he's got to protect his treasures. So what you need to do as a salesman is to help him find a way to put down his shield comfortably and then reward him for doing so. So right now, what's our current sales approach? Smashing truth into people's face. And then high-fiving your friends for who did the best smash. And then, you see people competing for who can harass the status with the biggest smash, and everybody's like excited to do the best. And instead of absorbing our ideas, what happens? People now have to protect themselves from us because we are a threat. We are attacking them, and they have to now protect themselves from what we're saying. And if what we are saying is true, if it's the truth, they are now protecting themselves from the truth. And not only protecting, but fortifying themselves from the truth. And so that's something that we have to understand is our own contribution to this problem. If you're attacking customers, you're not qualified to sell shoes or furniture or phone service, let alone a whole system of ideas. You can't do that. So what I have some common solutions that I have some ideas of what we can do. One, we need to fundamentally change how we think about people and understand that ideas are not people. People are not ideas. There's a discussion of the ideas, minimum wage, social security, legalizing drugs, and there's a discussion of whether the person's a bastard, an idiot, like whatever, some useless retard. That might be a valid discussion. It's just that it's a separate discussion. It has nothing to do with the ideas whatsoever. However, in almost any debate that you see, people, if you look at any YouTube video that discusses politics whatsoever, you're going to see the ideas and the character become one discussion. Those liberal retards, those conservative jerks, heartless bastards, everybody's bringing character into the discussion of ideas. And that's a very common thing known as an ad hominem attack. Libertarians are not immune to that fallacy. We've been egregiously causing egregious abusers of that. Now, some people are bastards, but obviously that has nothing to do with the topic. And it's a huge unnecessary distraction. So what we need to do is fundamentally change how we view people. We need to view people as potential allies. At least give them the benefit of the doubt. They're innocent until proven guilty in that respect. And understand that ideas flow between allies. They do not flow between enemies. That's a really important concept. Ideas flow between allies. They do not flow between enemies. And there's no reason our criticism can't be constructive at all. So how the hell are we going to sell this message of respect and tolerance if we're disrespectful and intolerant when we do it? Can you shoot down the ideas while at the same time lifting the people up, respecting them for where they are, and just focusing on those ideas, but treating them with a lot of respect? Because there's a concept called saving face. It's very important, and if people can't save face, they're gonna defend themselves. And now this splitting up amongst intellectuals in these fights and stuff, it's a very normal thing. Look how many ways the Christian church is split up into many different ways. Libertarians fight amongst each other. All intellectuals happen to do that, and that's a normal thing amongst engineers because everybody's got their strict belief about this stuff, and then they have. There's no way that it's reconcilable without splitting and fighting. You even see this on the internet with like I'm into cameras lately, and I see Canon users fighting with Nikon users. I see PC users fighting viciously with Mac users. Dog people are fighting with cat people. I mean, it's kind of normal. People find divisions and they fight amongst themselves. And you can kind of, it makes sense why people do this. If you're dropping $1,000 or $5,000 on a camera system, you don't want to feel wrong about what you just did. So all of a sudden it becomes a personal thing. When it's just a technical issue, it becomes very personal. People take it very personally because they've invested so much. And if you can imagine how people feel when they've invested so much into that, the ideas that they hold, their whole family, their mentors, their community. There is, unfortunately, football politics is real. People take teams and they stick by them, and they're very committed to them. And so if we don't have to have regard for that as engineers, but you have to have regard for that as a salesman. You have to understand that that's actually true. So another major problem that I believe we really need to change desperately is this concept of waking people up. Waking people up has been our motto. We need to wake more people up. There can't be anything, I think, more toxic than that concept. Now, it makes sense because we want people to understand and see, and so we kind of get that quick metaphor of understanding what we're talking about and waking people up to it. But waking people up is not sales, because seeing something is perceptual. Understanding is conceptual. And in order to get somebody to understand, you can't just show them, you have to persuade them. So to understand the difference, in order to wake somebody up, you can do it by honking horns, banging pots of pans, or throwing ice buckets on them. But in order to persuade them, you have to understand where they are, figure out how to connect with where they're at, and help them understand. It's a very different process than waking people up. And unfortunately, we're going that waking people up process, and we've become the Ice Bucket Brigade. So there's so much activism, so much energy, but very little sales. And if our policy is waking people up, I believe we're throwing time and energy down the toilet. So another concept is being right without being effective. How many people here believe that they can defeat most people in an intellectual argument? That's it? I thought everybody here is pretty smart. I figured most people feel comfortable that they can beat most others in an intellectual argument. Well, sure. But how many in this room think that they can win a basketball game with a paraplegic in a wheelchair? Pretty much everybody. Like, congratulations, guys. Most people are not at your intellectual caliber. They don't go to intellectual conferences. They like to play video games or hang out with their friends. They're not intellectuals. Most of the people are not. So if you can beat somebody in an intellectual argument, that's not going to do very much for the cause of what you're promoting. Because being right doesn't necessarily convert people. We can't debate our way to victory. Being right is absolutely helpful, but it doesn't end there, and certainly not for sales. And as I've explained, engineers are all about being right or wrong, and they need to be. They need to focus on being right or wrong. They should not be able to sleep if they're unsure if they're right or wrong. That's absolutely appropriate, and that's why we need engineers that are obsessed about that stuff. It's very valuable. But salesmen are all about helping people understand and agree. It's a very different thing. And one other little caveat about, I've been talking today, the concept is about that comfortable, non-threatening aspect of sales, which usually isn't the focus of a sales process, but I think in the Liberty movement that needs to be the focus right now, because until we can make people feel comfortable with us, it doesn't matter if we're attractive or simple. If people are very uncomfortable about what we're doing, we've ended the sale right there from the beginning. But I want to make one little caveat to that. There's a big difference between being a threat and presenting a threat. Paul Revere ran through town during the revolutionary times in America yelling the redcoats are coming to warn people about the British soldiers. He was presenting a threat. He wasn't the threat himself. So the threatening thing, I'm not saying you don't have to ignore the fact that there's threats out there. You just don't want to be the threat. So what are salesmen? A lot of people think of salesmen as the guys that are able to sell ice to Eskimos. And unfortunately, very sadly, a lot of salesmen do teach that. A lot of sales trainers teach that kind of approach. And unfortunately as well, there is a market for bullshit. But that market is saturated. So in order to succeed, you don't want to be in that market. And we don't need to be. What a salesman really is a hand holder. There's somebody that helps guide people from where they are to somewhere else. A lot of people they're on a certain platform, they're in a safe space, and you need to help them move from where they are to a new platform. They've got to feel comfortable about it. They've got to be, hopefully, they'll be excited about that, and you've got to make it easy for them, but you've got to make it comfortable for them. Basically, salesmen are leaders. They just figure out what matters to everybody, and they try to figure out how to take care of everybody in the situation. The realm of ideas is very confusing and scary even for a lot of people. So people are not moving off their platforms easily, especially when committed to it. So what you got to do as a salesman is get people to drop their guard, hold out your hand, and help them move over. Unfortunately, libertarians and a lot of intellectuals just have the approach of a baseball bat instead. They're ready to start swinging anytime there's any kind of disagreement. Now, if we're good salesmen, we got to lead by example. We got to work on ourselves. We want to be mindful of ourselves, tolerant of people. We want to be productive, responsible people because people want to be with others, around others that's got their shit together. And we also want to have high integrity because that will kill the sale if we don't. Libertarians have that. I don't think libertarians need any help in the integrity department. A lot of other people do, and that's killing their sales. Libertarians have that. The problem with integrity is that as important as it is, it's not enough. We need other assets in addition to that. So if the customers are not excited, the solution is not to attack the customer. We've got to find a way to connect and demonstrate appeal. There's really nothing more embarrassing than a complaining salesman. And the thing about engineers is that I want to try to help engineers become better salesmen. But if they're not focused on that area, that's totally fine. We need engineers. Engineers are great. They're highly respected and very valuable. But they should be on the showroom floor. They should pay attention to what the salesmen are saying. They should make sure that things are correct and give coaching and advice to salesmen who are never going to understand the product as well as the engineers, for the most part. But what the engineers should never do is jump in and fuck up a sale. Ever. But they do that quite often. And I have so many examples of that. I don't even know where to begin. Another thing, if we're going to be just a group of socially awkward nerds yelling at people to wake up, we have no hope. If we're going to just throw 1,200-page novels at people and hope everybody reads them, or in order for the world to be a better place, we have no hope. We might as well just give up now, because that's not going to get the millions of sales at very difficult sales that we're going to need to get in order to change anything. We have to understand that there's a lot of different demographics out there, and a lot of different salesmen focus on different demographics. Some people will deal with the elderly demographic, or the younger female demographic, or the surfer dude demographic, or whatever. There's so many unlimited demographics, and a lot of salespeople are able to connect with one demographic and not another. We need lots of people connecting in different worlds, and so we need a diverse group of salespeople. We need to understand that we need to have better tact, we need to be more attentive. And no one was born believing in a mixed economy. How did those ideas get into somebody's brain? We have to understand that maybe somebody's not going to buy the whole product, but it's still positive if they're moving in a positive direction. And we have to understand that that is still a sale. Even if we didn't sell our whole system of ideas down to the last T, it's still a positive thing. You see amongst libertarians, they fight and they write 3-page papers about why their best friend was wrong on this one topic. And that's good. That's what engineers should do. They should hash out those ideas. But that has nothing to do with sales whatsoever. And I want to give a quote from, well, we've got to make non-engineers, we've got to translate our product to non-engineers, we've got to make non-engineers excited, and we've got to make non-engineers more comfortable. And there's a quote from Thomas Jefferson that I like about this, where he says, "In matters of style, swim with the current. In matters of principle, stand like a rock." So we can be firm about our principles, but about the way we present them, we should be flexible. There's nothing in our principles that say we need to be a dick. And I think a lot of this problem comes to two of the biggest figures in the scene, Ayn Rand and Murray Rothbard. And there's a difference between Ayn Rand's earlier days and later days, and she got a little bit more hostile in the later days. And she started purging a lot of people and attacking people viciously for the slightest disagreement, used the word evil more than anybody in like the Spanish Inquisition. And then Murray Rothbard would also just attack viciously anybody that had subtle disagreements. He wrote a lot of hostile attacks against Milton Friedman, against Hayek, and a lot of others. And we cannot criticize them for that, because they've contributed so much to the realm of ideas that was their specialty. We can't expect them to have a great sales approach. The problem is that all of these fans of them have adopted not just their contribution to the realm of ideas, but their failed approach from people that had no understanding whatsoever about approach. And I think that the better examples of who to follow as far as approach goes are Milton Friedman, Nathaniel Branden, Jeffrey Tucker, a lot of the people that are understanding how to connect with people and bring people to a better place. And there was a big dispute between Milton Friedman and Rothbard back in the day, and I'm not going to get into it here, but I agree with Rothbard, technically. I think he's right about the Federal Reserve and certain issues that he disagreed with Milton Friedman on. However, Milton Friedman wiped the floor with Rothbard in the public eye. He got all the fame and all the recognition and all the attention because he made this very comfortable, easy to understand, and actually enjoyable. And that's something Rothbard didn't even try to do. So what I'm saying today is not, and another quick analogy. I think Ayn Rand did understand this, but not when it came to people. She understood this when it came to cats. Because there's a funny analogy, or a little story about some guest was over at her place and she had some cats. And these cats are a little bit rambunctious. And one cat jumped up onto the table and knocked over like a lamp or something, and it broke. And her guest yelled out, "Bad cat." And Ayn Rand quickly said, "No, good cat will do bad thing." So she did understand that people, the character of people, isn't necessarily decided by all these things. So what I'm telling you today is not about being soft. I'm actually not saying we should be soft. I'm saying we are being soft because we're not being effective. When I punch, I want it to do damage, and we're harming our ability to actually be effective at what we're trying to do. This is not about being humble or nice. Be bold, be controversial, but be thoughtful. This is not about sacrificing our principles. Like I said, there's no principle to be an asshole. And we are in a war of ideas. We're not in a war of people. So we need to focus on the right targets, kill them all, and win this thing. But we're not at a war with people, and with people, we're in a sales campaign. We need to make our product pitches simple and attractive, find a way to connect, and go out there and start persuading. It's a very different thing. So if there's anything that you can remember from this talk, if you forget everything that I just said, I would like you to remember this one thing. Say whatever you like. Say it as strongly as you like. Just try to come from a friendlier place. Keep our criticism constructive. And the example that I can give you about how to do that is this talk I just gave today. Because I've been brutal with you guys. I've been talking about where we're failing. And I wasn't talking about some abstract ideas. I was actually talking about behavior patterns that a lot of people are actually doing. But what I did was, first of all, I praised people even while I'm explaining what the faults are. I explained why the engineers are very critical. And I also explained it in a way of we. I'm part of this with everybody else. So this is a little bit meta, but this talk was an example of what I'm talking about today. Now, everyone's got different styles. A lot of people are a lot more soft and pleasant than I am. They're not as brutal as me. But the truth is, you can give tough love, because after all, it is love. And I love you guys, and I want us to succeed. And that's what I'm doing here. And I think that the success of our movement is not going to look like a bunch of people waking up all of a sudden. I think the success of our movement is going to look like a wave growing. If we ever do reach some sort of success, we're going to have a growing wave out there. And that wave is the success of that wave is going to, I think, depend on how we answer this question. Is that wave coming through a force of terror? Is it coming through to crash and destroy all the non-converted and make them pay for all the sins that they've put upon us? Or are we on top, reaching out and trying to help people, show them a better way, and include them into a better path forward? What I really want from you guys is to be welcoming, be understanding, and push yourselves to be amazing. If a lot of us can do that, I don't think there's anything that can stop us. Thank you guys for coming. I think we have a few minutes for a few questions, so sure, go ahead.
Because I'm closest and on your left. Is it hearing me? Okay, I like that. I like the idea of selling, but everything that you sell is you sell people things that are in their interests. Selling libertarianism is a tough call because it's against many people's interests. They can't get privileges, they can't get protection, subsidies, whatever. I just thought you mentioned Milton Friedman a lot. As it happens, I was friendly with both Friedman and Rothbard. And you're absolutely right, Rothbard was acerbic and aggressive and critical. Milton Friedman mentioned that he became persuasive when he started smiling. It was quite interesting. He said, smile while you're telling people your story. And he said it just completely transformed the degree to which people would listen to him because they thought he was friendly and with them and on their side and so on. But what I really want your view is how you sell somebody something that is not in their interests, might be against their interests, and is very abstract. If I go to the local workers here, the people tending the vehicles and working in the kitchen, why would they be interested?
Well, first of all, one big part of sales is learning when to move on. So you can't make every sale. So sometimes there's some people that have entrenched interests that are actually not conducive to liberty. For instance, authoritarian dictators, they don't like liberty. You know, there's certain people that have established privileges where it's going to be a tougher sale, and you might not be able to get them on board. You want to try, you want to find a way. There might be a way in, but we might want to focus on more lower hanging fruit than certain people that really it is not in their interest to support and promote liberty. That's absolutely true. So if you're cold calling people and they're really not interested, you don't want to just stay on the cold call. You might need to move on. It's absolutely okay. That said, what are we selling? We're selling peace, prosperity, and dignity for people. I think that's a very attractive thing if we can make this very simple and digestible and relatable about why this is very valuable to them. We can show examples of what happens when we don't have liberty and why we lose peace and prosperity and dignity. and why if we have more liberty, we can make that argument, but we can also just make, what I try to do is just make, look, we've got the intellectual battle, and I think we should keep fighting the intellectual battle, but the intellectual battle is a battle amongst a very small percent of the population. I am trying to focus my efforts. If you see me taking photos, I throw parties in LA with libertarian speakers, and I do, my aspect is I'm trying to make this just something that people want to be a part of. So I'm fighting in the social realm, which is most of the population outside of the liberty scene, or outside of the intellectual world. And I think we need to focus on that as well. So there's a lot we can do, but sometimes it's okay, you need to move on. You, right there. But just speak up loud.
Okay,
very loud.
So I was going to say that sometimes smashing things through people also works, and the game of one-upping others on Facebook and other social media platforms is also effective, especially if the opponent is intelligent and are willing to think things through. Yeah. So while I agree with this,
I'm not talking about the intelligent engineers. I'm talking about the people that aren't the intellectuals. So yes, intellectuals respond to logic and the clear, who's got the best structured logical case. Sometimes they don't. Very often they don't. But you're more likely to get through to an intellectual with that realm. I'm talking about how do we appeal to people that are not intellectuals. And even amongst intellectuals, that's not necessarily the most effective thing. But you, right there. Just speak loudly.
Yeah.
Oh, is it working?
So in this conference, I found that the best speakers are the ones that are able to distill the concepts and really kind of get to the heart of the message. How do you propose that we get those distilled messages and on social media try and win that battle so we can attract some of the younger people that might be open to this idea?
Well, I'm actually giving a technical talk that's really focused more towards engineers. I'm not speaking to a layman audience here. We need more people that are able to do that and just keep very, very simple topics. I'm not even the best speaker. I'm giving an intellectual explanation of why intellectuals are not being effective in sales. But yes, we need more people to just understand and trust us as a brand that don't necessarily understand. I don't understand how the iPhone or the Android works, but I know that they have enough credibility that I can rely on it. And I think that the libertarians need to, one, be more appealing to be a part of, that our message needs to be more appealing, and that our brand is understood to be something that people can trust and feel comfortable about and be excited about. Right now, that's not the case. Our brand is pretty bad. Yeah, right there. He's got the microphone. And everybody, just keep it like a question, no statements or monologues. So just make sure you're asking a quick question.
Yes. Okay, I'm Kimi. I searched and read all about you in Instagram, Facebook, and your blog. I see you have many good picture and a good tell story to sell, how to strategy to sell about yourself, about around of you. But why you not use it to sell about liberty or sell to the other people excited about your picture, and then you use the picture to donate, to combine, to action or movement?
So I'm not sure what your question is.
So what your why you not use it to promote yourself to the other people, or your liberty to the other people?
Why don't I use my photos and my social media to promote liberty to other people? Is that what you're asking?
I mean
just quickly.
Okay,
what?
I mean your picture just for share to the other, but you said it is just for your hobby.
Why is it not my profession?
Yes, not your profession.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, no, I'm an enthusiast photographer. I'm not a professional photographer because it's not my profession. I'm a commercial real estate broker. But as far as I'm concerned, we'll be done with this talk because we're gonna give other people a chance.
Thank you.
But as far as I'm concerned, You can take it. As far as I'm concerned, I'm pushing very hard to promote liberty with my photos. They've now transformed all the annual reports of most all the organizations. They're going to transform ISIL's annual report, which makes it look a lot better to donors. When I shoot all these Students for Liberty conferences and Young Americans for Liberty and all this, their parents see them. This kid that didn't change his bed a few years ago is now looks respectable and speaking to crowds. They're writing that they're crying when they see these photos, that they look like GQ models, and now they're donating to those causes, so they help. But most importantly, when these photos come up, they're all over social media. Facebook explodes, and then the friends, all these people have different people in their lives. Aunts, uncles, relatives, distant co-workers, and a lot of friends who are now wondering, what's up with him? Who, before he was just kind of like, they didn't really pay attention, but all of a sudden he's got these great photos. What's going on? How do I get involved in that? So yes, I am specifically doing this to do a lot of promotion outside. And I feel like it's being very effective. And so much so that I'm being asked to shoot pretty much every Liberty conference in the country, in America, and even outside of America now. Everyone's bringing me out everywhere. And I physically can't handle it even myself, the demand that came from it. Before I was shooting conferences, the photos were pretty dismal. They weren't really interesting. There was photos of the events, but they weren't very exciting. So now, people, it's like a new market that never really existed. I'm not trying, I didn't even try to do this, to be honest with you, but now there's a lot more photos out there, and I want, but I can't be the bottleneck, so I'm not protective about this. It's not my profession. I want more people doing this. I don't want to pass the torch. I want to pass many torches. I would like a lot more beautiful photos of the scene, especially in the social media Facebook age that we're in right now. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes, you've been waiting.
Yes, very good presentation. Question is, every salesman, before he starts his sales, makes some kind of map of the so-called target groups. You can't deal with the socialists, because, you will just, there is no sense of...
Okay, I don't want to go in a long monologue,
right.
But what's your question?
Yes, question is, do you have that kind of map of those, the closest groups, the target groups that we could approach, and also there should be some kind of different approaches to those different groups?
I want those things figured out and paid attention to. I'm not actually getting into the nitty-gritty details of this right now. But absolutely, we should be focusing on which demographics I can hit, what demographics Casey can hit, what demographics you can hit. Everyone's got different realms that they've already got certain credibility and relationships with, so they can start with their own circle, but also their own ability to reach out to people in a certain demographic that isn't within their own circle. I might not be able to talk to some of the people that Casey would be better at relating with than I am. In fact, he's great, but I'm good at in certain respects in other demographics. So we've got to just assess who we are and where we can connect, and see how we're able to do that. I think we have maybe one more question. We got to go. You go ahead. I think we're already over time, but
okay. Hi. Given that most people's opinions are pretty much set in stone by the age of 30. Is there any point in wasting energy on...
Well, yes, okay. So younger people are obviously easier. People's opinions do get hardened because they've invested more. And as far as socialists are concerned, sometimes I'm able to convert somebody who's a hardcore communist easier than somebody who's a moderate, because they really do care about ideas. So you're dealing with an intellectual engineer there. So that sometimes is a lot easier than somebody who just, they want to like go to pool parties and stuff. They don't really want to think about it. So it's really hard to convince them. And you know what? I don't criticize those people, because I think that's the ideal that we're all fighting for. Not to waste all this time, energy, and resources into politics, but to actually enjoy our times with our friends and parties and enjoyable tastes in our mouth and simple pleasures in life, and not worry about these political battles. That's what we're all fighting for, is to allow those people to set the example for us. We shouldn't be criticizing people for that, because that's the ideal. All right, guys, I think that's enough. We're done. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.